Good morning, everybody. My name is Ayan. We are going to unlock how do we build empathetic solutions using design thinking without being pushy. So let's kickstart the session. What we are going to do is we're going to talk about the human-centered designs. A lot of people come to me and say that, Ayan, I have a brilliant idea. I know that it's feasible. I know it's viable also. I've invested so much of time, energy, and money. The first question that I ask is, do we have customers? Is there a desirability? Why does it matter? Well, we're going to discuss about that as well. 95% of the times we are busy solving a problem. Immediately when we are given a problem, the response is that we need to solve that problem. Since our childhood, we are conditioned to solve problems. But design thinking talks about how do we find the right kind of problems to solve. Why is it important? We're going to cover that as well. Value capturing and value creation. How do we do that? We're going to talk on that as well. Traditional thinking versus design thinking. Is there a difference? And if there is a difference, what is the difference? The 5 steps of design thinking is something that I'm going to introduce today. Going ahead, we need new choices. A pure technocentric and a management view of anything is not going to be sustainable because we need to understand, discover, identify the needs of our users. What we need is we need new ways and products which is going to balance the needs of the society and individuals. We do not buy solutions. What we buy is on our needs. For example, if I ask many of you right now, how many of us will go ahead and buy a movie ticket today? How many of us will go ahead and buy a gym membership maybe? During the pandemic, all of us were locked down. And though we had high desires of going to a theater and watching a movie, we had high desires of going and socializing at the gym and working out. We did not do all of that. On the other hand, how many of us bought Netflix subscription or Amazon subscription? How many of us bought equipments of working out at home? Many of us did. So even if we have high desires, we buy on our needs. Aspiring innovators do a lot of brainstorming sessions. Really do this, make it to the outside world in the form of new products and services and strategies. We have an idea which is inside our head, and we believe that the entire world is going to take that idea. We force fit the idea into the throats of our customers. So design thinking will help us understand the right approach and delivering on the needs of societies. And the entire world is shifting towards creating those meaningful experiences. Let's also understand what design thinking is not. It's not a miracle cure. It can certainly help. Design is that aspect which captures the qualities of the designers and can help motivate and engage us and our ecosystem. It's not a quick fix. It takes time to implement and should not be forced. I mean, we need to talk to at least 50, 100 users before we start implementing. That much of time should be given so that we can capture the right kind of needs and insights. It's not a guarantee of success. It's a complement to improve communication, collaboration, consensus building. We will also understand that design thinking is not a magic. Yes, there is a method to the madness. The magic is an outcome. The entire method revolves around being human-centric. With that, I would say that design thinking is a perspective. And the perspective is with a focus on people. Now, why the sudden interest of design thinking? There are some fundamental cultural differences between the thinkings that we used to do previously and the kind of thinking that we would do today. More often than not, all of us know how to solve a problem. We always focused on doing the things right. But on the other side, design thinking talks about finding the right problem to solve. Doing the right thing plus doing the things right gives you the sustained advantage. Now, if you look at problem solving, doing the things right, we're talking about value capturing. But when we're talking about doing the right things, we're talking about creation of value. Value capturing, we're talking about efficiency movements. For example, Six Sigma, lean manufacturing process, outsourcing, total quality management, corporate redesign, market segmentation. But when we're talking about value creation, then we're talking about the discipline of business whose primary concern is to innovate. So when design thinking becomes the core of the thought process, companies become more nimble in the face of rapidly changing markets and new competition. So if you look at it, design thinking, is it strategic thinking? Yes, it is. Value migration and the shift to a value creation economy is something that design thinking focuses on. Design thinking is a holistic approach. We cannot only say that, hey, you know what, I'm doing product development. I'm just going to use design thinking over here. Or maybe I'm into service development. I'm just going to use design thinking here and I'm going to forget the rest of the things. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a culture. I'm going to show you one of the videos of IDEO wherein they redesigned an entire shopping cart. So, how could we come together, build on some consensus, collaborate to design an entire holistic offering that creates value at the different touch points that our users are? It's more about creating options in design thinking. It's not about, one size fit for everything. The more iterations happen, the more possibilities come into the picture. In traditional formats, we always try to figure out the right kind of answers. Well, design thinking tells you, hey, listen, hold on for a while. Are you getting the question right? The answer might be hidden in the question itself. Pause for a while, think, and find out the right question. Design thinking is about that. Traditionally, we used to speak about waterfall engineering, a repeatable and a proven process. Well, in design thinking, we are talking about intuitive processes. There's nothing called as what has happened in the past is going to work again tomorrow. The world is changing. Every second it is changing. Traditionally, we used to design for people sitting inside the workshops. Today, we design with people. If we have to design the cockpit of an aircraft, it's better that we take one of the pilots as our user and design alongside him. We have no idea how to take off and land an aircraft. We have to design with the pilot. Traditionally, we used to think for insights. In design thinking, we build for insight. Prototypes. A prototype is not a finished product. A prototype is a good enough, rough to inspire, rapid to evolve. Why do we do that? Because we want to get the insights of our users before we start building an end-to-end kind of a solution. Traditionally, we used to tell more. In design thinking, we need to listen more. Traditionally, we used to talk about stuck inside. Today, we talk getting out of the building, going and meeting those users, doing those empathy, mapping those empathy, coming back, validating all the hypotheses that we create inside the room. Traditionally, we used to talk about data. Today, we talk about stories. Traditionally, we used to talk about events. Today, we talk about experiences. How might we enhance the experience? Traditionally, we used to talk about facts. Today, we talk about feelings, motivations. Traditionally, we used to speak about a siloed process, doing everything in isolation. Today, we talk about collaboration. All the different disciplines come together, collaborate to build on radical ideas. Traditionally, we used to talk about evolutionary. Today, we talk about inspirations, revolutionary. If we understand that, yes, this is the right question that we are trying to solve, if we focus on designing with, if we focus on building for, if we focus on listening more, getting outside the building, collecting the stories, the experiences, the feelings, motivations of people, collaborating, that's the time we will be able to find that, yes, a revolution is happening. A human-centered approach to innovation. When we talk about business viability, technology feasibility, and now we talk about people desirability. When we are working on desirability and feasibility, we are doing something called as a functional innovation. Do people require this kind of a feature? Is it technologically feasible for us to build on that? Hey, that's functional innovation. Similarly, when we are talking about, is it business-wise viable? Is it technologically feasible? We're talking about process innovation. When people need that, there's a high quotient of desirability. And we also know that this is going to make a lot of business sense to us. We are talking about emotional innovation, brands, relationships, marketing. And the center point where all of these circles come together, this is where the experience of the users are getting enhanced. This part is called as the experience innovation. So when desirability, we are talking about design thinking. Process viability and technology feasibility, we are talking about process innovation. Functional innovation, desirability and technology feasibility. Desirability and viability, emotional innovation. Tata Nano, immediately it comes in my mind. The motivation of building the Nano was really very inspiring. Ratan Tata saw a small family on a rainy day and he said that I'm going to change their life. Hey, he worked on desirability, he worked on feasibility. But many times people come back and say, hey, Nano is a failure. Well, I'm nobody to say or comment on that. But what I can understand from this entire chart is maybe they did not work on the business viability part of it. The process innovation wasn't there. Many people can come back to me and say, hey, the positioning was wrong. Yeah, desirability and viability, emotional innovation, the brand, relationships. Design is to design the design of a design. The first design is a noun, of course, which means a general concept or a policy. But what is the activity? The activity is also to design. What should we design? The plan or the intention, and hence the finished outcome. It's an iterative process. And if you look at it, it's kind of iterations that keeps on happening. 5 steps of design thinking are empathy, understanding people. That's where the human centricity comes into the picture. Once you have empathized with people, once you have understood their needs, and along with the needs, we also understand their insights. That's the time we will be able to find the problem. We get into defining our problem. We start taking the point of view. Once we define the problem, that's the time we get on to building the solution, which is ideation. Once we have the ideation in process, again, we get into the testing part of it. If we feel that the idea is not working, can we go back to empathy? Of course, yes. Can we go back and relook at the problem statement? Yes, we can. And that's the reason why it's iterative. And once we test the idea, we quickly build on something which we can share with our users and take their first-hand motivations, feedback, and capture what works, what ideas they are giving us so that we can develop more, the impediments that they have, the challenges that they have. So empathy, define, ideate, prototype, and test. The entire literature that we have is from Stanford University. This is how they have defined design thinking. We will deep dive into each and everything, interviews, shadowing, seek to understand, non-judgmental, various tools of empathizing. Defining, we're talking about personas, objectives, decisions, challenges, pain points, game creators. When we're talking about ideation, we're talking about sharing ideas. All the ideas are worthy. How do we diverge and how do we converge? And the language when we use in design thinking. It's not but, it's yes and. The moment we say but, we are being judgmental. The moment you're using yes and, we are talking about a possibility. The moment we are talking about but, we are stopping a possibility. Then in prototype, we talk about mock-ups, storyboards, keeping it simple, keeping it fragile, fail fast, fail early in order to succeed sooner, quick iterations. And then in the test phase, we talk about impediments, what works, role plays. And if I have to show you a more deeper picture of what design thinking is all about, inspiration, ideation, and implementation. So inspiration, we try and understand. How do we understand? We observe. When we are observing and understanding, that's the time we will be able to create some point of views. When we are creating the point of views, that's the time we will be able to understand what ideas can be built on. When we have the ideation in place, we quickly build, not to sell, but to learn. Once the prototype is ready and we feel that yes, the test card that we have created makes a lot of sense, we go out and test. We take the feedback. And once we have done rapid testing, we build on the story. Storytelling, that's the time we go on to piloting. Once the piloting is done, it's time for a business model innovation. So if you look at these 3 points are inspirations. These 3 points are ideation process. And these 3 points are implementation. And all of these things are linked to each other. So the moment we are doing a business model innovation and we feel that this is not working, can we go back? Yes. Can we go back? Yes. And we go back, and we can go back anywhere. We can go back anywhere. For example, we are in point of view. We understand that this is not working. Can we go back? Yes. This is the beauty of the design thinking process. Inspirations, ideations, implementations. So with that, this is the first understanding of design thinking overarchingly. In the next video, we will go and deep dive in each and every stage of design thinking and understand the tools which is required to be the design thinkers of the future.